The funniest thing about Meghan Markle's deranged display in Montecito over the weekend with Ted Sarandos, the Netflix boss, is that she hasn't realized yet you're the one being played, Meghan.
44 photographs, one evening, one duchess, and the only people willing to stand next to her for an official camera were the two people legally obligated to invite her in the first place. That is the story nobody wants to say out loud. That is the story hiding inside an April 10th Netflix garden party in Montecito, California. And every tabloid from Page 6 to the Daily Mail spent the entire weekend screaming about a chartreuse dress instead of asking the one question that actually matters. Why, in 44 professionally shot, Netflix-approved, press-distributed photographs from an A-list event in her own backyard neighborhood, does Meghan Markle appear in individual pairings with exactly two people? 2.
They made sure that Carey Mulligan did not come in until Meghan Markle had left. And she didn't want to leave. She was making everybody's life a misery because she wanted to be present because she's the Duchess. But no, honey, you have lost big time. That's how much Meghan Markle's dog has fallen. She was kicked out and Harry was embarrassed and apologizing to Ted Sarandos once again for his wife's lack of sensitivity or listening to people or following a simple dress code.
She is very, very worried, nervous. She's on the back foot. She knows Netflix is gone. She knows Netflix is moving on, and she's sort of freaking out about it. They know the gravy train is ending, and they're just doing anything as humanly possible to gain attention.
Out of a room that included Batman, a Miami Vice legend, a 3-time Oscar nominee who was literally the headliner of the night, and a former Canadian Prime Minister whose own press team awkwardly had to clarify he was Katy Perry's boyfriend. That room, and 2 pairings. Let's actually talk about what that number means because I don't think people are sitting with it long enough. Stephanie Keenan shot this event for Getty Images on behalf of Netflix. If you don't know that name, let me put it in context for you. Keenan does not miss. She has been shooting entertainment premieres and Hollywood private events in Los Angeles for over 2 decades. She has photographed Oscar parties, Grammy after-parties, studio screenings, and A-list fundraisers. She is not the photographer you hire when you want candid, accidental, catching people mid-bite coverage. She is the photographer you hire when you want a controlled, curated, maximum press value photo record of an important event. And the way those shoots work at private Netflix events is not complicated. You identify the headline guests. You make sure the headline guests appear in press-distributed pairings. You make sure the talent being celebrated, in this case Carey Mulligan and the cast of Beef Season 2, is well represented. And you deliver a Getty drop that tells the story the host once told. 44 frames came out of that garden on April 10th.
None of this was a good look. None of this was a good look. She looks truly deranged. We know what she's trying to do here. The problem is, Brittany, it changes nothing. The fact that Ted Sarandos wants her to try and promote Beef.
44. And when you go through them, Meghan Markle shows up in a group shot with Harry and the Sarandoses. She shows up hugging Nicole Avant. She shows up in a solo pose with Ted. That is the totality of the Meghan photo record from that night. Not a single individual pairing with Don Johnson, who was physically present. Not one frame with Michael Keaton, who was physically present with his partner Marnie Turner. Not one photograph with John Corbett. Nothing with Nick Kroll. Nothing with Oscar Isaac. Nothing with Kelechi Okafor. Nothing with Charles Melton. Nothing with Orlando Bloom. Nothing with Lee Sung-jin, the man who literally created the show the party was thrown for. 0 out of 44 frames from a photographer who doesn't miss. Now I want to be upfront about something because this is the exact point where this kind of analysis goes off the rails if you're not careful. I am not inside that garden. I don't have behind-the-scenes footage. I don't have a seating chart or a timeline of where every guest was standing at what time. It is theoretically possible that somewhere in the frames Keenan didn't release, there is a moment where Meghan is laughing with Don Johnson about Miami Vice. I cannot rule that out with 100% certainty, but here is what I can tell you.
I mean, she doesn't care about her reputation, does she? Or does she think that the Duchess of Sussex title can take on anything and nothing's going to happen to it? That title, it's already devalued, depreciated, and valued completely. How embarrassing. And no, Meghan Markle doesn't have a model body.
The press-distributed record, meaning the photos Netflix and Getty chose to put in front of every entertainment journalist in the world, does not contain a single one of those moments. And in Hollywood, what gets released is the story. What doesn't get released is also the story. Because if those moments existed, and they were warm, and they were flattering, and they reflected well on everyone involved, they would have been filed. That is how this works. A photographer of Keenan's caliber does not accidentally leave the Duchess of Sussex warmly embracing Michael Keaton on the cutting room floor. If that frame existed and cleared, it would be on Getty right now with 140,000 licensed downloads. It's not there, which means it either didn't happen or someone made a deliberate decision that it wasn't the story they wanted to tell. Either conclusion is uncomfortable for the Sussex PR operation. And before you tell me this is all just dress drama, I need you to understand the context this party was sitting inside, because the Beef Season 2 screening did not happen in a vacuum. Go back 24 days, March 17th, 2026.
It is gross, and trust me, I know how fake Hollywood is. I know how fake the entertainment industry is. But Meghan Markle and the Sussex Squad think this is a win for her. Think that this in some way disproves everything that has gone on with Netflix. It doesn't. All she looks is nuts. Totally crazy. Clinging on to Ted Sarandos' wife for dear life.
Variety publishes what I would argue is the single most damaging piece of journalism the Sussex brand has absorbed since the Spotify deal collapsed. Matt Donnelly's byline, 6 sources inside Netflix, and one of those sources, quoted through the outlet, not inferred or assumed by me, described the internal mood at Netflix regarding Harry and Meghan as simply, "We're done." 3 separate insiders told Donnelly that Ted Sarandos personally had reached the end of his patience with the couple. And in the same piece, UTA CEO Jeremy Zimmer went on the record. Full name, full title, on the record. The quote he gave was about Meghan's podcast work, and it was not gentle. He said she was not a great audio talent, or necessarily any kind of talent. That quote originally came from 2023. Variety dusted it off and ran it in March 2026 because in the context of the story they were reporting, it still applied. 6 industry sources. Named executive on record, the single most powerful streaming CEO in the world reported to be personally fed up. That was the situation Meghan's team was looking at on the morning of April 10th when they decided what outfit she was wearing to a party at Ted Sarandos' house. And that's why the party matters in a way that has nothing to do with Beef Season 2.
Getty Images removed all the pictures from Harry and Meghan Markle at that event. But I think you noticed something here, right? You can see that Carey Mulligan is wearing green. She's the only one wearing green because that was the whole point of it, that she was the star of the show and people had been told to wear black and white so she would stand out because all of these are promotional pictures. The whole show is about her. Meghan Markle had to show up wearing exactly the same color dress as the star of the show.
She wasn't there to celebrate Carey Mulligan. She wasn't there because she and Harry are big fans of the streaming drama format and wanted to support the cast. She was there because 6 weeks earlier, a journalist had published a piece making the case that her most important remaining relationship in the entire entertainment industry was functionally over, and she needed one photograph that suggested otherwise. One photograph. That was the assignment her team walked into Montecito with that Friday evening. And the photograph they got was the Nicole Avant hug, which is the photograph that Judy James then wrote about in the Daily Mail. Now let me explain why Judy James matters here, because people outside the UK sometimes don't understand the specific weight of that byline. James has been analyzing body language professionally for the Daily Mail for over 20 years. She is credentialed, frequently cited, and her column is read heavily by the demographic that most influences how the Sussex story gets processed in public conversation, specifically women over 50 in the UK, Australia, and across the Commonwealth. When James writes something, it circulates in that audience in a way that press releases and spokesperson statements simply cannot counter. And James, writing about the Nicole Avant hug and the group foursome shot from the Sarandos party, used 2 phrases that her team should have found genuinely alarming.
You think this is a big victory, and that somehow all of the stories, which are factual, which is that Netflix has dumped your... Because Was Never is the worst lifestyle brand in the history of lifestyle brands. Because, what was that show called? I can't even remember. With Love Meghan. With Love Meghan was the worst piece of lifestyle TV programming in the history of lifestyle TV programming. And the fact that they even unfollowed you, Ted included, on social media.
The first was exaggerated displayed attachment rituals. That's clinical language wrapped in a verdict. It's not saying Meghan was fake. It's saying the behavior being displayed went beyond what the situation called for. That the warmth being performed exceeded the warmth that appeared to actually exist in the room. The second phrase was the one that actually cut. James described the way the foursome was positioned, meaning Ted, Nicole, Meghan, and Harry, and wrote that it appeared as though Meghan was photobombing her host's couple pose. Photobombing. That is the word a credentialed body language expert used in a major publication to describe a duchess attending an event she was invited to at the home of the most powerful person in streaming. Not integrated, not natural, not warmly received. Photobombing. When your best photo of the night gets that caption within hours of the Getty drop going live, that is not damage control that worked. That is damage control that made the damage worse. And then there is the dress conversation, because every channel covering this story this week ran the Heidi Merrick chartreuse angle, and every single one of them missed the actual point. Yes, Meghan wore chartreuse to the Beef Season 2 screening. Yes, Carey Mulligan was also in chartreuse. Yes, that's a fashion story, but not the fashion story anyone was running. The tabloids went with Meghan upstage as beef star in matching dress. They framed it as a power move, a scene-stealing moment, a deliberate style flex from a woman who knows exactly what she's doing when she shows up in color. Flip the question. Look at what Carey Mulligan actually did that night.
It's obviously such a PR move from Netflix in a way, because they know Harry and Meghan, the one thing they can get from the couple for sure is publicity, nothing else.
Carey Mulligan was photographed with Lee Sung-jin, the show's creator. She was photographed in conversation with Oscar Isaac. She appeared in frames with other cast members, with industry figures, with people who have professional reasons to be photographed standing next to the headliner of the event. She was the center of the night in the way the host intended when they put together the guest list. Meghan was in chartreuse next to the CEO's wife, with a body language expert's photobombing caption for company. Here's what makes the dress choice genuinely interesting when you look at it from a strategy perspective. Heidi Merrick, the designer Meghan wore, is a Montecito-based label. This was not a random appointment with a stylist pulling options from a showroom. This was a deliberate choice of a local designer, a brand Meghan has worn before, for an event where every single variable was controlled and thought through in advance. Her team knew the guest list. They had to.
Meghan tends to get a bit more manic when things aren't going particularly well. You can almost feel the force and emphasis by her to try and make this Hollywood thing work. And despite maybe getting an invitation, or more likely inviting themselves to this event, Harry and Meghan are not doing well in Hollywood. The future is looking quite bleak for them in the entertainment industry.
That is how these events work for principals at Meghan's level. They knew Carey Mulligan would be there. They knew the photographer. They knew the color palette and the vibe and the likely shot list. Every decision going into that garden on April 10th was intentional. And the intentional decisions produced 2 press pairings with the host household and a photobombing caption. That's the return on a fully controlled strategic rollout. Which brings us to the numbers, because the numbers are the part of this story that Ted Sarandos actually has to live with every Monday morning when his team pulls the performance data. With Love, Meghan, Season 1. Netflix ranking among all titles on the platform in the first half of 2025. Number 383, not 383rd most watched show on Netflix. 383rd among all titles, including things that have been in the catalog for years, including niche documentary content, including programming that was never actively promoted. With Love, Meghan, Season 2. Netflix ranking in the second half of 2025, number 1,217. Read that again. The sequel to a lifestyle show starring the most talked-about woman in the royal media cycle, ranked 1,217th on the platform that produced it and spent money on it and sent it out into the world with a full press rollout. That is not a show that is underperforming. That is a show that is functionally invisible. That is a show where the audience that was theoretically there for it looked at Season 2 and decided they had other things to watch.
The body language here is interesting because Ted and Nicole are leaning into each other, but Meghan is leaning towards Nicole as if she's separating herself from Harry. And of course, she's here clutching Nicole's hand. And it's very strange.
The Polo documentary about Harry, the 2024 release, pulled 1.1 million views, according to Hollywood Reporter. For comparison, Netflix's genuine breakout documentary titles routinely land between 30 and 50 million views in the same window. Heart of Invictus, the earlier Sussex sports documentary, pulled approximately 300,000. 3 Sussex titles, 3 consecutive underperformances, each one worse than the last. And then there is the as-ever situation, because this is the piece of context that most of the tabloid coverage this week quietly stepped around. On March 6, 2026, Netflix formally exited its equity stake in Meghan's lifestyle brand As Ever. This was not a quiet administrative adjustment. Netflix had taken an equity position in the brand as part of the broader Sussex content deal. Walking away from equity means the financial relationship that existed beyond just producing shows was over. Variety reported that at the time of Netflix's exit, the company was sitting on more than $10 million worth of unsold as-ever inventory.
The relationship is screwed. And the fact that Meghan is so crazed to think that we are just going to take some really weird pictures as evidence rather than actually very in-depth reporting, which has been going on for months and months and months, and now has been confirmed by Variety, the Hollywood Bible, just shows that she really does take people for fools. And that is her problem.
Some of that inventory was reportedly distributed to Netflix employees for free, on tables in the office. Royal branded lifestyle products, the kind you're supposed to covet and purchase and gift and display, sitting in the lobby of a tech company getting picked up by staffers on their way to a meeting because nobody else wanted them. The company took the equity loss, put out a polite statement, and walked. That happened 4 days before the April 10th Beef Season 2 screening. So let me give you the full calendar here, because the timing is what makes the garden party make complete sense as a strategic decision even as the execution failed. March 17th, Variety publishes the 6-source piece. We're done. Sarandos is fed up. Jeremy Zimmer on record. March 6th. Netflix formally exits as Ever Equity. $10 million in unsold inventory reportedly given away internally. April 10th. Harry and Meghan attend the Beef Season 2 screening at Ted Sarandos' private Montecito residence.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe Ted is now friends with Meghan. Let's look at that. After such a display of friendship, Meghan Markle laughing, maybe he followed her on Instagram? Of course not. Of course not.
44 photos are released. 2 individual pairings, both with Netflix leadership. 1 hug that gets called photobombing within hours. Also, April 10th, the same calendar day, the defamation lawsuit filed against Prince Harry by a senior UK media figure becomes public in the High Court of England and Wales. 2 active PR fires burning simultaneously, and the best asset the Sussex team could produce out of the garden party was a body language analysis that used the word exaggerated. When your win photo gets that treatment, you have to ask what the photos that didn't make the cut looked like, because something made the cut and something didn't, and Stephanie Keenan filed 44 frames, and only a small handful of them included Meghan Markle at all. In a room full of people who have collectively worked with her, been photographed near her at other events, and have every professional incentive in the world to be seen warmly interacting with a woman who has an active deal with the most powerful platform in the world, unless the deal doesn't look that active anymore. Unless the room already knows something that the press releases haven't caught up to yet.
This is not the first time, not even close. Remember Prince Louis christening in July 2018? The entire royal family wore cream, white, and soft blue, and Meghan showed up in an olive green outfit, the only splash of color in the entire lineup. Different event, different year, same pattern. Meghan has never met a room she didn't try to make about herself.
Netflix's CCO Bella Baharia went on record in the aftermath and said simply, not to believe whatever you're reading, that there's no interesting story here. Fine, that's what a CCO is supposed to say. That's the job. But when 6 people inside a building told a journalist we are done, a spokesperson statement issued 4 weeks later from the same company does not cancel those 6 sources. It just exists next to them. Both things are now in the public record. Both things have to be weighed.
Meghan Markle's superpower of taking on a beautiful dress and uglying it up. Not only has Meghan Markle uglied her dress and has given her a bad rep, but Meghan Markle hasn't paid for it. I mean, at a certain point, this woman should be accused of theft.
And here is where I want to be honest about what I actually know and what I'm inferring, because I think the people who do this kind of analysis do their audience a disservice when they present inference as fact. Nobody handed me a document saying Meghan Markle was deliberately excluded from photos at a garden party. Michael Keaton has not issued a statement saying he avoided her. Don Johnson has not given an interview explaining the evening. None of us were in that garden. We're all working from the same material. The Getty drop, the Variety reporting, the Judy James column, the Netflix ranking data, the As Ever inventory reporting, the public court filings. But when you put all of that material on a single table and look at it together, the picture that forms is not the picture the tabloids ran. 1. 44 official Netflix commissioned photographs exist from that evening. Meghan appears individually alongside 2 people. Both of them are Netflix, meaning both of them are the people who have contractual reasons to be photographed with her, regardless of where the relationship actually stands.
This one is the only picture which survived with the Getty images. And here you can see Meghan Markle earlier in the evening standing there. You can see everybody else is wearing black and white. The star of the show is not there yet. She arrived a little bit later. Carey Mulligan, the star of the show, arrived a little bit later after you see that picture. And Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were asked to kindly leave.
2. The guest list for that evening included at minimum 6 globally recognized names with no individual press pairings to show for it in the released record. 3. The highest profile pairing her team walked away with, the Nicole Avant hug, received a photobombing verdict from one of the most quoted body language analysts in the UK within the same news cycle.
Meghan's smart. She knows what she's doing in some ways, and she's also super desperate. And so she's like, oh, we're the same color.
4. This all unfolded on a single calendar date that also included the public emergence of an active UK High Court defamation filing against her husband, while Netflix's equity exit from her lifestyle brand was only 4 days old. 5. The show she was there to implicitly support through her presence, with Love Meghan, ranked 1,217 on the platform in its most recent performance window. Those are not tabloid angles. Those are documented public facts sitting in a very specific configuration. And that configuration tells a story that the chartreuse dress coverage was never going to tell you. She wasn't there to celebrate Carey Mulligan. She was there to survive the room. And the room, quietly, professionally, in the way that only Hollywood knows how to do, did not survive with her.
Meghan choosing colors that deliberately clash and trying to steal attention is very, very Meghan, very desperate, very D-list actress, which is what she's always been.
Don Johnson does not need to make a statement declining a photograph. Michael Keaton does not need to announce anything. You just exist in the same garden for 3 hours and never happen to be standing in the same frame when the shutter goes down. That is how this business communicates without communicating. The photographer files 44 frames, and in those 44 frames, the relationships that are real show up. The ones that are being performed for the morning papers show up with Judy James captions attached. The upstaging narrative only holds if you accept the premise that Meghan was in genuine competition with the A-listers for the room's attention. The photo record suggests something different and significantly worse for her team. She wasn't competing, she was auditioning. And the people who have the power to give her the callback were the same people who spent an entire evening in the same garden without standing next to her once. When the only documented warmth at a party comes from the 2 people whose job it is to have warmth with you on camera, you have not attended an event. You have attended an audition where the results were posted that same night in a Getty drop that 44 frames deep managed to tell you everything you needed to know about where the relationship actually stands.
She had to ruin or try to ruin Carey Mulligan's moment, and it showed that Harry and Meghan Markle have lost their pull to be asked to leave a party. That's how bad things were for this woman, and she left angrily. She wasn't smiling when she left.
The callback has not come. What comes next is Melbourne. Within 72 hours of that garden party, Harry and Meghan landed in Australia for their first tour of the country since 2018. No children. Commercial ticket prices running up to 3,199 Australian dollars per seat. A Change.org petition against taxpayer-funded police protection for the couple that had already passed 43,000 signatures before they touched down. And somewhere inside that Australian trip is a moment I think is going to define the next chapter of this story in a way that no garden party and no Getty drop can contain. A moment involving the one institution the Sussex operation cannot sue, cannot spin, and cannot out-photograph. That video comes next, because 44 frames from a Montecito garden are just the beginning of what the record is about to show.